there. I want to take this time to invite you to join me for the next half hour as we read, we study, and we meditate upon the Word of God together. It's been said that even the best laid plans of mice and men can suddenly go asunder. And there are many people who believe that everything that takes place in our life was pre-planned and predestined to take place. They believe that time and chance is the determining factor in determining the course that our life will take, which often means being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and such action may often wreck our carefully laid plans and our fondest hopes. After all, whatever our talents are, and however wisely we plan our lives, we are guaranteed neither wealth nor success nor even food. It often turns out, as King Solomon tells us in the 9th chapter of Ecclesiastes and the 11th and 12th verses. I have observed something else in this world of ours. The fastest runner doesn't always win the race, and the strongest warrior doesn't always win the battle. The wise are often poor, and the skillful are not necessarily wealthy, and those who are educated don't always lead successful lives. It is all decided by chance, by being at the right place at the right time. People can never predict when hard times might come. Like fish in a net or birds in a snare, people are often caught by sudden tragedy. And for many people, when these unexpected turn of events takes place in their life, it may cause them to develop an attitude that is more vindictive, and they become more self-centered, which creates a lack of love and concern for their fellow man. That's because they become so consumed with the ideal that everyone seems to be out to get them, and are out to get them and make life very hard for them. And then they become more withdrawn and cold and callous to those who they consider to be their enemy. And their attitude about life and about people themselves becomes more and more negative. And they build up a wall around themselves, and it causes people to shy away from them. And they do this because they want to protect themselves from being hurt and disappointed as they were in the past. And that's brought on because of their attitude about life and how life is treating them. As far as they are concerned, life itself can best be summarized and described in the title of my sermon: It Just Isn't Fair. You know, it's been said that the world is split into two camps, the wealthy and the poor. Therefore, the question remains, is the world destined to remain economically divided, or can those who have, the wealthy, and those who have not, meaning the poor, achieve parity by enjoying a common standard of living? The gap that separates the rich from the poor will have a tremendous bearing on their lifestyle and on the quality of their life, depending upon what class they belong to. If you are rich, you will enjoy the very best that life can offer you. But if you are poor, life will become very difficult, and the chances of you becoming very successful will greatly decrease. When a person lacks money and other resources, which will help his family to enjoy the better things of life, it will affect virtually every segment of one's life. And most of the problems of the poor revolves around the lack of money to provide for oneself and for one's family. In the United States, for example, about 30% of the nation's total income goes into the pockets of the upper 10% of households. At the same time, the lower 20% of households must make do with just 5% of the total income. When there's a lack of money to meet your basic needs and the needs of your family, it will affect your life expectancy. And when you don't have the $60 or $70 fee for your doctor's office visit, and if that doctor is a specialist, then you're looking at a $100 or $200 doctor fee. And it's quite alarming to know that many people are not covered by any form of health care. But then, it could be even worse. For you see, you and I are Americans, and we are living in one of the 9 richest countries in the world. And because we are Americans, we belong to a country that is number 1 among the 9 richest countries in the world. We have the availability of 1 physician for every 242 to 539 inhabitants. And if you have the money, you at least have a chance of keeping abreast of your health condition by seeing a doctor on a regular basis. And because of that fact, the male life expectancy in the United States now stands at 74.4 years. But in more than half of the poorest 18 countries in the world, the life expectancy for males is well below 50 years. That's because in the 18 poorest countries, there is only 1 doctor for every 3,707 to 49,000 of their citizens. The lack of money also affects another important area of one's life, and that's the literacy rate of one's country. If you have been born and raised in a poor country, the possibilities for education would lag far behind the literacy rate of most affluent nations, often dooming children to a life of poverty. This lack is reflected in literacy rates, whereas 7 of the 9 richest countries have literacy rates of 100%. The other 2 have rates of 96 and 97%, with a literacy rate in America standing at 96%. But in the 18 poorest countries, they have a literacy rate ranging between a high of 81% and a low of 16%, with 10 of them under 50%. For the poor and the working poor, many of their problems are money related. And if they were to receive an abundance of money into their life, and they would be prudent and wise in using that money, it would improve their life greatly. And it would have a tremendous effect in eliminating much of their problems. And King Solomon, who I would consider was a very wise man in his day, said in the 10th chapter of Ecclesiastes and the 19th verse, "A party gives laughter, and wine gives happiness, and money gives everything." Again, let me say that it's important that you have the right attitude toward money and how you use it. And that will determine whether money will be a blessing or a curse in your life. In regards to money, a person needs to achieve a perfect balance. Too much money can cause a person to become puffed up with pride and haughtiness. On the other hand, if there's a lack of money, then a person will develop an attitude of hostility, anger, and will become a part of the blame game, blaming other people, society, and even God for their financial condition. And King Solomon, in his quest to resolve this issue in his life, sought the expert advice of God in a prayer request that he made, which can be found in the 30th chapter of Proverbs and the 7th through the 9th verse. O God, I beg two favors from you before I die. First, help me never to tell a lie. And second, give me neither poverty nor riches. Give me just enough to satisfy my needs. For if I grow rich, I may deny you and say, who is the Lord? And if I am too poor, I may steal and thus insult God's holy name. And it's during these times when a person becomes most vulnerable to the wiles and the snares of Satan. For when things are going bad in your life, despondency and anger will slowly develop within your heart and your soul, and Satan will begin to encourage you to think that God had abandoned you. And it's at this time that you must immediately gain control of your thought life. For you see, even though Satan may try to tempt you with thoughts of rebellion and disobedience, which is a form of witchcraft, you and you alone have the ultimate control of what you think. And if you allow Satan's suggestions to invade your mental consciousness, then it will rapidly spread into your spiritual life to the extent that he will gain complete control over your life. And this potential danger is made known unto us in the 4th chapter of Ephesians and the 26th and 27th verse, as well as the 1st chapter of St. James and the 19th and 20th verses. And don't sin by letting anger gain control over you. Don't let the sun go down while you are still angry. For anger gives a mighty foothold to the devil. And my dear brothers and sisters, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get anger. Your anger can never make things right in God's sight. The greatest joy and experience you will ever have in your life will be when you know that God truly loves and cares about you, and that you are in his protective arms. And nothing by any means shall harm or hurt you without God's knowledge or approval. For when you become a part of God's family, you can be confident of the fact that whatever we experience or go through, it will bring glory unto God. And the Apostle John in 1 John, the 5th chapter, and the 18th through the 21st verse, gives us some practical instructions for Christian living. And it assures us that those who know Jesus Christ know God the Father as well. And when a person allows Jesus Christ and God the Father to enter into their life and into their heart, that person will experience the love of God in their life. We know that those who have become part of God's family do not make a practice of sinning. For God's Son holds them securely, and the evil one cannot get his hands on them.